Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday special. This is the JRPG report, and this is our very, very special Spoilercast episode for Trails of Cold Steel 4. This is a Spoilercast, so if you have not played not only this game, but pretty much at least all 4 of the Cold Steel games, if not all 9 mainline titles, you will want to stop listening immediately. You're about to get everything ruined. So if you have played everything, please continue to listen as we welcome in Jake to the podcast. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I am doing quite well. We've been planning this one for a while. You had to wait a few months for me to finally get done my playthrough so we could have this conversation. Sorry about the little delay. You're a little bit quicker gamer than I am.
Hey, no worries, man. It definitely worth taking your time to get through this one.
And it takes a long time. I think you said you were about 120 hours. I think I was over 130 hours. This was the longest one, wasn't it?
I think initially on my first playthrough, I might have spent a little longer in Cold Steel 3.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, give or take an hour here, hour there. Yeah, they were about the same. If not, I mean, definitely both of them longer than the first 2. That's for sure. Yeah,
and it's not like the first 2 were short games. They kind of feel like they've gotten longer each title in the series, maybe a little bit. Not counting Probably. Sky 3 was maybe a little shorter than the others, if I recall. People telling me.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't able to play Sky the Third, but yeah, I mean the Cold Steel games definitely felt longer than the Sky games. None of which are complaints. If you love the game, the longer it takes, the better.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think the Sky. We played both the first 2 of those. I don't think those should have been any different. Those were like the perfect length, and same with the Cold Steel. I feel like I felt part 3 drag just a little bit longer than I would liked it, but still, it was amazing. And I mean, the story that these things are telling are amazing. What would you think are your overall just opinions on the game? You know where I stand on it. As in the previous podcast, I said it was my game of the year. Is that also the way you feel, or would you give it to Remake?
Well, I definitely would not give it to Remake.
Okay.
I mean, Remake was a solid game as far as games go, but I would have preferred a turn-based one where they didn't change and screw up the story.
That would have been awful nice, yeah.
That's Nomura for you.
Yeah, he can't help himself.
I was watching your live stream yesterday for the original FF7, and I wasn't sure if everybody who was in the chat had played through Remake, so I didn't want to ask the question, but I felt like asking. Hey, is this the version where Zack is dead when the game starts, or the version where he's alive?
That would have been I'm glad you kind of didn't say that, but I feel like everybody that was there, they didn't say they hadn't, so.
Yeah, nobody responded but you, so I didn't want to say it, but that's what I was going to say.
Zack's immortal. He can never die. He's there. Yeah. Except when he does. Yeah,
I mean, Remake was a good game, don't get me wrong, but Cold Steel 4 was definitely the best one I'd played all year. I mean, obviously, if you don't already love Trails, you're not playing Cold Steel 4.
No,
you probably shouldn't even try. You're just doing yourself a disservice by starting. I mean, we all know the high barrier to entry with the Trails series.
Mm-hmm.
If you're here playing Cold Steel 4, you're already through that barrier. So, I don't even think it's right to criticize the Trails game for that anymore.
No, of course not. I wish they were. Yeah, go ahead.
If you haven't made it through the barrier by now, then you're starting in the wrong place.
And as we've said before, I wish that barrier was easier to break through, that it was more accessible to players. At least, I've not played Crossbell yet, but having played Trails in the Sky made my enjoyment of this game even more. So I feel like you don't have to play those ones, but man, you sure did gain a lot. And I know people who have played all of them who have gained even more than I have.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I wish some of the older games were on easier to access platforms. So when I say barrier to entry, I mean like there's a lot of games to go through before this, assuming you have the means to play them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, myself, I haven't played Sky the Third. I haven't played the Crossbell games. I've watched YouTube videos and read story summaries of what happened. So I was able to know what was going on when Lloyd and his crew came in and all that stuff. But yeah, it's if you haven't at least played Cold Steel 1 through 3, starting here is not where you want to start. So I don't even think it's fair to criticize barrier to entry at this point.
No, absolutely.
I think listen to this podcast if you haven't played at least the first 3.
Yeah, you should not be. Yeah, and I think that was my biggest beef with. I mean, it's kind of like if you hadn't played all the games listed in this podcast, it's the same as what Switch is doing with only releasing 3 and then 4 in the future, and not the first 2. I think that's just really weird and kind of a dumb move on their part.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get them eventually.
Well, yeah, but why? Why are they not already out? That's what I'm kind of saying. That's kind of silly.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it might be just because they were localized by a different company.
Oh yeah, it was Xseed. Yeah,
Xseed has both 1 and 2 on the Vita, which is where I played them for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe it has something to do with NIS America's ability to put them out on Switch. I mean, right away, like, they just started the Trails series with Cold Steel 3. So, I mean, I'd rather have them working on Cold Steel 3, 4, and Hajimari than wasting time going back and putting 1 and 2 on the Switch.
Well, that's for sure. I was more meaning for poor Switch owners. If that's your only system and your only means of playing, that's kind of a raw deal. But it is what it is, and I think you raise a valid point.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with if they ever bring Crossbell over here.
Yeah.
What company they decide to use to localize it, I think will tip Falcom's hand on what they're going to do moving forward.
That'll certainly be interesting. So let's get into it. Unless you had anything else you wanted to kind of mention beforehand, we're going to try to break it down, kind of actually play it through chronologically by act and by events, and highlight those major things, and kind of just give a little recap of it all in terms of things that we want to talk about. And I think you wrote. I'll go ahead and say it. You wrote the outline for this, so I'm going to be following your lead on it. And the first thing is something you've not really done in this series, unless I guess some people might choose not to. But fighting without Reen, it's kind of a crazy experience.
Yeah, I wasn't obviously seeing what happened at the end of Cold Steel 3. It's no surprise that you were going to start this game without him.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought Yuna did a great job taking over the lead.
Yeah.
The way they kind of broke down that first act where, you got, you had Kurt and Altina with you the whole time, but then, Ash came back and then Muse came back, and then they were switching out, various old Class 7 members throughout the act. I think Yuna was a good step-in protagonist for that first act.
Absolutely. I feel like 3 is almost her story in a lot of ways of coming into her strength as a character, and I think they were building up for her to take that next step. And she kind of does it all throughout Part 4, not just at the beginning, taking a major role in things.
Yeah, I mean, knowing Falcom, yeah, they probably had that planned well in advance.
Oh, definitely. But so did you like fighting without Reen, or was it like, oh man, I can't wait till I get this guy back?
So, I mean, this was my first playthrough. I played it on normal. And I mean, it's been a while since I played a Trails game, with it being my first playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
I've replayed Cold Steel 1, 2, and 3. second time, in New Game Plus mode. So the difficulty, I felt the difficulty was there. Some of the mechanics that they nerfed, I had trouble with getting everything together and building up the party. That there were some parts in Act 1 that were a lot more challenging than I expected.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, not counting the very beginning with the heroes of I always say it wrong. Labero.
Liberal and Crossbell, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not counting that.
I didn't mean the prologue. No,
yeah.
I meant
so that part was very easy, but yeah, getting back into it and not having, I guess, that stalwart of Reen, and like I feel like I always did the exact same thing with Reen, so it's not very fun to play with. He's just necessary to play with. So not having him as just that every day, the cancel attacks and all the things that he does with all his crafts, and you take him for granted when you all of a sudden you don't have him, and you've got like I would never use Altina in my party. That's just not somebody I really want to have in there. And now you're forced to. It makes things a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I think, you remember the break mechanic in Cold Steel 3?
Yeah.
I think they definitely really tried to nerf that coming into Cold Steel 4.
Yes.
Honestly, I think they nerfed it a little too hard, especially for Act 1. So,
yeah.
I mean, Yuna's primary build is to break the enemies, right?
Right, exactly.
So, but they nerfed that mechanic so hard at the beginning of the game, throughout the first act, there were bosses where I would spend, a dozen rounds breaking their break gauge, only to break them right before their turn.
Yes.
The delay so small, he recovered from break immediately, got another turn, and attacked.
Yes, it was harsh.
It made the whole thing seem like a waste. So it wasn't until I abandoned the strategy of trying to break enemies that I was really able to get through the majority of Act 1. I had to abandon that. I stopped using the brave orders that increased break damage and just went straight for regular damage, because I felt the way that the break mechanic was nerfed, it just wasn't working. Especially that early in the game, because you don't have access to all the other orders that speed you up and allow you to really get in there and hit them while they're broken, because you just don't have access to that stuff yet.
No, you raise a great point, and I feel like in 3, yeah, they definitely wanted you to break things. That was your key to success. I kind of resisted playing that way because I guess I didn't like it. And so I think maybe at the beginning of 4, I didn't have as much of a problem, and I quickly abandoned any hopes of trying to break enemies and just you break away from them. There's nothing more frustrating, as you say, is that you break them, it's their turn, and unless you were able to quickly spam an S-Craft or something, they were just right back to normal and hitting you. That was infuriating.
Yeah, I mean, it happened. I mean, there were times where it happened. I actually did legit get wiped once during a boss fight. I had to go back and change the strategy. I mean, once we got Reen back in the party, I cruised through the rest of the game, no problem. But you're a little farther along. You get more of an inventory built up by that point. The first act for me was definitely the toughest.
It was the toughest, and it had the most difficult fight. I mean, I'm sure there's some special fights that can be as challenging, but we talked about the difficulties of your party at that point. No Reen, and then you get to fight Osborne and Lillian. I mean, good grief, that was challenging.
So the fight with Osborne and Leanne, there's a bonus AP condition.
Yeah,
that's what I felt like. Because I'm a completionist, so I really wanted to get all the AP from that fight.
You had to.
Yeah, you've got to knock them both under 50% health or whatever the threshold was at the exact same time, or the battle ends.
That's the key. At the same time.
Yeah. because I mean, I was able to burst one down, no problem. I mean, I never got wiped out in the fight, but I had to reset it, I think about 4 times
Okay.
uh, before I was able to knock them both under at the exact same time. What made that so difficult was right before that, you have to fight Reen,
Yes.
and that fight takes a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, I mean, saving and reloading, like you can skip through the cutscenes, but you still got to go through the fight with Reen, which wasn't easy either.
No.
And I mean, yeah.
I I talked with a lot of people, including yourself and others, who had to do the same thing. They wanted that, completionist. You got to get every single AP point in order to do that, and that was part of it. And they had to restart it 3 and 4 times. And so as I was live streaming, some people were kind of telling me that. I'm like, you know what? That doesn't matter to me because I knew I knew I was going to mess up something along the ways and miss it anyway. And I was not going to put myself through the misery of an already extremely difficult fight, making it somehow even more difficult. Because their attacks, man, they just hit you so hard. You could be wiped out instantly in no time at all.
Yeah, I tried to fight 3 times in one night, and I eventually said, okay, it's getting too late in the day. Even if I succeed on my next fight, it's going to be well after midnight by the time I get done with all the cutscenes afterward. So yeah, I had to quit and come back the next day before I eventually was able to get it.
It was, it was so early in the game, and people were telling me this is the hardest fight that you're going to face. I'm like, wow, that's really saying something. But it's more the limitations of your party necessary than, in addition to how difficult it is. Like, if you fight that fight at the end of the game, it's not going to be nearly as challenging because you've got the game broken by that point.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So that ends. I mean, that's such a climatic ending to Act 1. You get out of there, and then kind of moving into more of Act 2, you've got to hear complaints about padding. Why don't you elaborate on that a little bit?
Before we even got the game, there were reviews out by, content creators who had early access to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were saying that Act 2 felt very padded.
Yeah.
I disagree.
I do too.
I thought it was great. I thought having Reen go back to all these places and listen to, to see everybody's reaction, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, if anything, I felt there was more padding in Act 1, and you had to take Yuna's party around to set up those, whatever you call them, the nail in the ground, triangulate Reen's position.
Yeah, there's several of those, and they took forever.
Stakes. Yeah, the mystical stakes you had to drive into the ground. I felt there was, not that I minded it. I still enjoyed Act 1.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I didn't think there was. Act 2 didn't feel padded to me at all. I mean, I really enjoy going back to every location, talking to everybody. I mean, a lot of these NPCs we've been playing with for 4 games now. So
yeah, at least 4. Some of them more than that.
Yeah. So
yeah, I have also seen that complaint from several people as they play through that Act 2 was their, maybe not the end of it, but throughout the game they didn't enjoy the majority of Act 2, and I didn't see any of that. I quite liked that. So I don't get that at all.
Yeah, I had a great time with that too. I mean, getting Reen back, being able to go through even some of the dungeons you had to go through in Act 1, you could go back and open the trial chests, and
mm-hmm.
You could finally put together, for the most part, not completely, but you could put together the party you wanted. And it just felt like, through Cold Steel 3 and now maybe a third of the way through Cold Steel 4, it just feels like everything's starting to come together. Before it, heads into the big finale.
Exactly. So you finally get both Class 7s together. What was if you could pick just from those 2 groups, what was your go-to party?
Of how many people?
Let's just say 4. Just your main combatants.
So in this game, I used Reen, Fee, Laura for my main 3 at all times.
Yes.
4th one kind of rotated. In the end, I went with Crow, but in Act 2, I don't remember exactly where he joined the party, but he wasn't available for all of Act 2. So
No.
that one kind of switched out between Yuna and Kurt and
Okay.
Eustace.
Okay.
But once you got Crow, I enjoyed using him a lot in this game, much more than I did in Cold Steel 1.
I never used him in Cold Steel 1, and I guess it would have been
Neither
after
did
the
I.
rivalry that you got to use him. And he was one of those guys that I didn't use at first, and then he gets forced into your party a couple times, and I used him. I was like, oh, by the end of the game, he was a part of my main 7 or whatever.
Yeah, fighting with his dual saber, that was so much fun. I never used him in Cold Steel 1. Didn't like him. And yeah, this game he was in. He was one of the main 4 by the end of the game.
That's awesome. He was very balanced, but strong in both magic and physical. Usually you have to sacrifice one for the other, but he was a very strong overall character. I kind of felt bad I was sad in him the whole time, but
and he had speed too, which
yes.
Speed is the stat that you can use to break the game the most.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what determines the potential you can get out of a character, because if they have the natural speed, you can pretty much build them into anything you want.
Yes, absolutely. So, and I finally got on the Fee train. It started a little bit with last game, and I finally got her in there. To your chagrin, that I hadn't been using their entire series, I'm sure, but there's no bigger breaking of the game than her. It's ridiculous.
She's great.
I felt bad a little bit with her evasion and counterattacking for critical, but then I was like, you know what? I don't feel bad at all, because they set this thing up to work like that. It's not my fault.
Yeah. Hey, that's what you get for picking on the short girl.
I think at the end of the game, I had her evasion at 116 or 112%. It was insane.
Yeah, I see. I didn't really because I didn't have a dedicated magic user in my main party.
Okay.
So I kind of had everybody with. The way I typically build everybody is to get their speed as high as possible, so I can minimize the action delay between turns.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I didn't throw every single evasion quartz on Fee that I could, but I got her speed up obviously higher than everybody else. I mean, she still had almost 80% evasion for me.
Which is practically all of it, so they're never going to hit her.
Yeah.
I love this one in particular because I think you could talk to 10 different people and they'd have 10 different parties. I used to probably play more like your party setup. Laura was always in there, of course, and Crow made his way in there. But, I chose to go with 2 magic people, actually. So I'd have Fee out front where nobody could hit her. I'd have Rain with his S-Crafts just hitting people from afar with the slash. And then I had, Muse and Emma just destroying people with high-level magic with the EP recharge. I never ran out of magic. So it was... I felt was such a fun way for me to play and to fit my play style. But yeah, anybody could play any number of different ways, and that's just with Class 7. You're not even talking about adding some really strong other heroes to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about having this large cast. One of the other complaints that I saw was it felt like, the cast is so big, everyone has to get their 2 cents in, and it drags down the cutscenes. Again, I didn't feel that way at all. I didn't feel that there were characters who were forced into the scenes that shouldn't have been there. I think it played very well personally. But one of the benefits of having a large cast is you can put together pretty much any party you can think of, build them any way you want. So yeah, like you said, you have 2 cannons in the back firing off magic, and be out in front dodging all the hits. That's if that carries you through the game, then there you go. You're getting to play with your favorites. I mean, that's the best part about having the cast.
It really was, and my favorite part was Laura was my strongest character on the bench. So if anything should go awry, I've got a super heavy hitter with her, and then with Crow and anybody else at that point. But I felt like my bench was as strong as my starters, to make it kind of a sports analogy there, and could come in at any point in time.
I kept Eustace on my bench because he has that craft where he can put up complete immunity to the entire party, assuming they're not too spaced out. Oh, yes. I had a panic button on that. If it was going bad, I could swap him in there. Everybody gets this wall of immunity, and there you go.
Yeah, that's a pretty good backup plan. That's not bad.
There were times where, I think like one of the fights with McBurn in particular, he was just wiping the floor with everybody. I had 3 dead characters on the field, 1 person left, swapped him for Eustace, had him put up the immunity, and then he was able to get my entire party back into shape before I sent him back to the bench.
That's awesome. Another, along those same lines, if I did have the choice, I'd put Elliot in there because of his S-craft that could revive everybody instantly in that situation.
Yeah, that's another good option. Like I said, you got all these options. You can pretty much build it however you want.
Yeah. The only complaint I would have, and you touched on it momentarily with mandatory people, that was only at the very end where you had to have a couple people and they had to be like, in your fighting lineup. I didn't love that part because the first thing you do is switch them out. But other than that, I really didn't have a complaint with the party.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did that pretty well. Like, it makes sense from a story perspective that, certain characters are fighting each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, from a narrative perspective, it makes sense that they force them to be in there. The good part about it is, you have a bench of characters. You can swap them in and then use whoever you want as soon as their first turn comes. So, even though you had to bring them with you, you still could get away with using whoever you wanted for the majority of the game.
Absolutely. So let's go to. I think this was my favorite moment, and I'd say most people would agree with the big mass gathering of every hero some people have played in every one of these 9 games together for one big epic meetup. Did it live up to the hype for you?
It did. I loved it. Everybody meets up on the Panagril towards the end of Act 2. Just to see all these people meeting up for the first time or seeing characters reunite where we haven't seen them have scenes with each other, some of them since all the way back in the Sky Arc.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. I spent so much time talking to every single NPC between every event. It was a blast. It really was. It was a huge payoff, and it lived up to what you were hoping for through 8.5 games by this point.
It was, and I think up to that point, the voice acting was pretty hit or miss, and then it's like, oh, here's where they spent all the budget, was voice acting a lot of these, that scene, and then you talk to absolutely everybody you've ever met, and it was like all the little groups of people together, and it's like, oh, this is an interesting group, let's go see what they have to say multiple times, and oh man, it was wonderful.
And, it's similar to in Cold Steel 3, and they're having the gathering in the ballroom before the Emperor gets shot.
Spoiler! Whoa!
Right? And every time an event happened, the groups changed.
Yes.
So just like in Cold Steel 3, every time an event would happen, you'd go back around and see, oh, okay, this, so, okay, Yuna's talking to this group of people now, or Kurt's over here with these guys. I know for me, one of them in particular was Estelle and Fee were talking with the girls. Over on the other side of the room, Joshua was over there talking with the boys, and Fee asks Estelle, so how far have you and Joshua gone? I laughed so hard when that came up, man. I'm telling you, that was great.
That was the best. Oh man, there was so many of those little moments, but that was a can't miss. only Fee would ask something like that, and it was wonderful.
I mean, it was great. It really was. And then seeing Joshua and Ash meeting up for the first time, both
Yeah.
children of the Hummel tragedy. I mean, that really hits you in the feels. So some of it were fun moments, like with Fee and Estelle. Some were serious, like with Josh and Ash. I mean, yeah, the whole thing was great. It was a great way. It was a great payoff moment that I felt.
Yeah,
Halfway.
so many moments it's impossible, and so many characters. I mean, the amount of firepower on that ship at that point in time, not just counting the heroes, but you've got Principal Le Guin and Wallace, and then Big Daddy Cassius finally makes his appearance, and it's like, holy cow, so much firepower.
Yeah, you barely even got to talk to him in the Sky Arc.
Yeah.
So he finally shows up. He finally gets some lines, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was, but what? Okay, I would say it wasn't fun, but it was definitely an experience. Was after all that the epic 4 boss battle at the end of it, where you knew it was going to come to get a little bit crazy once they found out you were there, and the enemy hits you hard, and you got to break up. Did you like that fight, or was it kind of just frustrating?
I mean, I ended up getting through it okay. I was a little nervous going into it because, I didn't want to wipe out halfway through one of the fights and then have to start all over again.
For your AP, yeah.
But I, from a narrative perspective, I thought it was great. Having groups of guys on one side, girls on the other, fighting. One group of antagonists over here, another group over there. It was definitely really cool the way they played that out.
It was, and it was a kind of that perfect ending and setting up. You're at such a high, and then they hit you with that. It's like, And I do like it when they change things up and give you something unique in terms of a 4 fight like that back to back.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And one thing I wanted to point out, because I noticed this when I played, then going back through and watching other people play and listening to their opinions on it. So these battles were broken up, for the most part, guys against girls, or guys on one side, girls on the other. Guys fighting guys, girls fighting girls.
Right.
With the one exception of I forget which one of your teams was fighting them. But it was the fight against Maribel, Shirley, and Campanella.
Yes, Campanella was the one, yeah.
Campanella makes a point of saying, "Oh, all girls over here."
Uh-huh.
There was an interview with Kondo about that scene.
Oh.
And thinking back, they never declare a gender for Campanella. There might be something going on there. We all assume he's a boy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He looks like one, but the voice could go either way, really.
Yes.
So Kondo did not. He definitely made a point to keep his answer vague when answering that question. So there's definitely more to Campanella's backstory than we've been told so far. So it'll be interesting to see where they go in the future on that one.
It certainly will be. I mean, your first inclination is, okay, is this like a situation in Persona 4 with the detective Noito, or I believe it was posing as a guy but was actually a girl underneath it, or it could be somebody non-gender specific without really knowing how to say that. It's definitely something to it. The responses in the game would indicate there is more to him just appearing as a boy who even Estelle notices, like, you don't look a day older than we saw you all those years ago.
Right, that's the other thing. He or she doesn't age.
Yes.
Definitely something to that too. because I mean, you can tell. Obviously, you can tell Tita's grown up, but
Yeah.
you can tell Estelle and Joshua are a little taller.
Yeah.
Agate a little taller. He's got a few more scars. You can tell that these guys are aging.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't.
No, not at all.
Campanella doesn't. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
That'll
Who knows? With some of the weird things that happen in video games, he might not even be a person. He might be,
right.
a spiritual entity.
Yeah, I mean,
who knows?
What we learned with McBurn further down the line, his whole spiel going on. We've got we've got androids in there. I mean, there's no telling what he is or isn't, and I think the door's completely open to whatever he is. I love him as him or her, whatever you want to say, as a character, because he gets under Yuna's skin so easily, and everybody else's.
Yeah, he's a great antagonist for sure.
Yeah, I think he's going to get what's coming to him eventually.
Yeah.
So that was such a great ending. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that point. I'd almost actually forgotten about that. So that leads into Act 3, which, if I recall, I think that was the longest act. Do you feel like?
Yeah, it sure felt like it to me.
Yeah.
Because, again, I took my time going through here. So every time something major happened,
mm-hmm.
I would go back to all the towns. I would talk to all the people. Every time, you're picking your destination on the map from your ship, it would say new.
Yes.
Like there's something new here. I would go to every single one of them and check them all off. So
right.
I definitely think that I put the most amount of time in Act 3.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to the rivalries, you've just got everything else going on. The war's stepping up. The world's on fire, but there's time for side quests. Don't worry, we got plenty of time for that.
Even right before you head to the final dungeon. I mean, everybody's going to war. Everybody's going to war. They're all about to blow each other up. But hang on, let me go finish this side quest.
Yeah, at least they weren't like I lost my cat type side missions at the end. They were at least meaningful, at least most of them. But
yeah, I felt like they were.
There wasn't nothing too unnecessary. So we're getting into the rivalries, and we're getting into some nitty gritty stuff where that it's not going to end well for individuals. There has to be some dying going on. Did you find the rivalries to be difficult? Did you enjoy them? I think they were fine. I didn't love them per se, but it was pretty cool to see those story arcs go through.
Yeah, it was fun to see the storylines with Rutger and Leanne come to a close. I felt like the Divine Knight battles, I personally didn't have an issue with them. I felt like I could see why people would, because if you're not keeping up with the courts that you can put in your Divine Knights,
yeah,
I mean they're just gonna wipe the floor with you.
Oh yeah.
So and I was playing along with a guide, so I didn't have to waste time guessing where the weaknesses were.
Yes.
If you're wasting turns and missing and they're countering, and I mean they can really wipe the floor with you if you're not careful. So I could see why people would have trouble with them. I didn't. And I did feel that the way that they laid out the battles was done very well. You got to fight, for Rutger, you got to fight Rutger, in human form before you guys went and then did the rivalry. So I thought that was done very well. I really liked, being able to do that because it brought a little more background to each, to both Rutger and Leanne, because you got to see their crafts and their moves and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way that played out.
I didn't like the actual fights, the Divine Knight fights. I feel like they were all, and they've been setting these things up for a while. There's a lot of guarding, a lot of defending, and picking your moments. And yeah, if you did not keep up and get those high level courts, you would be dead. If you attacked when you should have been guarding, you'd be dead. I feel like they just took a long time because you had to go through that process. You have to understand that's the only way to win. It's going to take some time, and you cannot rush through them at all.
They were definitely some long fights. One of the strategies that I used to where I didn't have to guard so much was I would, when I saw, there were some fights that had, the main boss and then a couple of ads where, they were just minor enemies. But when the main boss was going to come up with something powerful,
yeah,
if my support unit was going to get a turn, I would usually swap in one of the support units that could put up a barrier.
Okay.
So you could weather that attack without taking any damage. So that was one of the strategies that I used to avoid having a guard over and over. I think Milliam had one.
Yeah.
Tina might have had one. It might have been somebody else. So that was one thing that I did.
That's pretty smart. I wish you'd have told me that before I started playing.
Yeah, I picked up on that one back in, I don't know, probably Cold Steel 2. I think it was Milliam who had the immunity art she could use when you were fighting in, battles with the Divine Knights. And I've been using her, either her or one of the other options ever since.
That's pretty smart. So I felt bad for Fee, of course, with Rigger, and that the father figure that she never had, and then he dies, she loses him, and then he comes back, and then he dies again. It's like, good grief. I say kid. She's not a kid anymore. I thought that was pretty rough, but it was interesting to see the dynamic between. Just speaking on Ruger in particular, throw Sarah out there. They're, her paying respects and all that. And then what did you pick up on this? And, oh gosh, I forget her name. The weapons dealer for you guys. And her mom. And how
Django?
Yes. And there was one scene where Leo and... I want to say Zeta Hort, but that's Kingdom Hearts. The other Xeno, they were at her mom's and having a scene, and there was some sort of minor implication that there might have been a connection with Ruger, possibly even being Jingo's dad. Did you pick up on that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it was a deep draw, and it didn't. You'd have to go back and watch that, but there was some hints that could have actually been the case, because she didn't know her father. Obviously, her dad was not around, and the guys were there. They'd done business together for a long time. She admired him and wanted to pay respects too. So it wasn't like it was like I felt bad because it was a long time ago, but definitely like that could have actually been the case, perhaps.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. One of the things I did pick up on with Django was her dog Cerberus.
Yes.
So she runs the weapon shop on your ship late in the game, right?
Yeah.
So it was between one of the major events. I was talking to her, and she said she was going to throw Cerberus off the side of the ship and have him parachute down and sell weapons on the front line. She's going to have him sell weapons on the front line or wherever it was. And I was just like, oh my God. He's going to have the dog parachute off the ship.
Yeah, of course. It was hilarious. What did Ring say? Like, that's not the weirdest thing I've ever heard, or something out of this kid. Like, oh yeah, please don't do that. Don't.
That's her for you.
Oh man, Cerberus was great. I loved it when he was manning the counter. He'd sell you weapons too. He was a good dog.
Yeah, he was.
But yeah, so I felt bad to see that one go, and Fee had to deal with that all over again. And but I still liked it.
Then you get to Leanne's her scene. And,
oh man,
the way she comes out. Oh man,
that was rough. Didn't see that one coming.
Neither. Yeah, he just pops up behind her. Rufus does, and just runs her through.
you didn't think you could like Rufus any less, and then he does that.
Yeah, he really becomes a despicable character. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think I
feel
started.
bad for you.
Oh gosh, yeah, and that was, we'll talk about that at the end. But it's like Rufus started off as somebody who I didn't hate, and then he just got like worse with every single game, more cunning and more couldn't understand why he was doing what he was doing necessarily, and I'm sure neither could Eustace. But yeah, that
you know what? Honestly, the Iron Bloods, even now, I still don't understand why they were doing what they were doing. I really don't get weak-minded. I mean, I get that you're indebted to this guy. They all have their different reasons.
yeah,
But how weak-minded do you got to be to do some of the things that they did? You know,
to the very end. Yeah,
they just blindly follow him, commit all these despicable acts. It's just.
yeah. At some point,
you're supposed to like Claire. You're supposed to like Lecter.
yeah, but you can't.
I mean, yeah. At the end, I just can't stand any of them. It's like, you guys have a backbone and stand up for what you think is right, not just because this guy's telling you what to do.
The only one that did was Milliam, and she wasn't even human. So,
And she died for it.
She did. We'll talk about that at the end as well. But yeah, that was rough seeing it, but I guess it kind of had to happen. I mean, she was going to die one way or another, being an immortal. So it's kind of the way it goes, I guess. So I wasn't
surprised that both her and Rutger ended up dying, but the way Leanne went out was definitely a shocker.
It was, and I guess that kind of made it a little more interesting in terms of the fights ahead. But
yeah, and it was really nice to see how everybody was paying their respects.
Absolutely.
Afterwards, I mean, you even saw the one scene where everybody from Ouroboros, whether they had left or left the society or were still in, they all gathered together to pay their respect. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I guess they mentioned later the only one that didn't was McBurn, I guess, but. Yeah, I guess he had some reasons for it. Well, the last note that you've got here is, and I'll let you speak on it, the thoughts on the divergent laws. That's a good topic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any thoughts on them because they haven't really given us anything to go off of yet. It's just, there's definitely more out there than what we've seen. Like it's like, I mean, you saw some of it with McBurn, where there's definitely a different plane of existence where he comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Like off the coast of Ereboni on the Zemirian continent, like, there's water out there, but where it goes, well, nobody knows, because just for some reason, nobody ever goes out that way.
Yeah. Well, I think they even mentioned that they can't. Like, it doesn't matter how far they go, they reach nothing or something like that.
Yeah, so it's, there's definitely more going on, and I mean, they just use the divergent laws to explain a few other things, particularly with the Hexen clan.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'd be interested to see what those are later on in the series, and then coming back to replay some of these games to see if any more pieces start falling into place. That'll be a lot of fun.
It really will be, and I don't think I was expecting anything along those lines with this game. Like, getting into Cold Steel, I kind of thought it was going to be like, okay, this kind of classical, not medieval setting, but traditional JRPG setting, and just going through it, and then like each moment there's more technology, there's more lore going on, and by the end of this, you're talking about parallel worlds. And even some sort of idea of like either a dome or like a confined setting that this world is stuck in, almost like it's created. And
like a snow globe.
Yeah, like a snow globe, exactly. And it's like there's some super big ideas going on top of other big ideas to begin with the whole fact that these Divine Knight battles have been going on for countless times over and over again. That was just one history of the world. So it's like, what is going on?
and nobody remembers them because every time
No.
they fight, it gets wiped from the minds of all the people, and divine knights just go back to sleep for a while. That's part of the divergent laws, which obviously the divine knights are gone after the end of this game,
Hmm.
so we probably won't get a reason as to why that happens. But yeah, it's just something else to ponder over until they explain a little more. Yeah, like you were saying, with different planes of existence and parallel worlds and all that stuff, makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if Nomura interned at Falcom for a while.
It does have some eerie parallels to all that kind of craziness that's going on there, or maybe it's just like a
Yeah,
Japanese, idea that we don't quite understand as well.
it could be, but yeah, I mean, every story he gets his hands on tends to go in goofy directions. He worked for Falcon for a little bit there in the last few years.
Let's hope not, because I don't. This is going weird places anyway. I don't want to go that kind of weird places. I'm good on that.
Exactly. Same.
So I did not see. I knew there was at some point going to be, you know, a point where you'd have to choose, a romantic interest, and I did not know it was going to be at Michelin. How do you say that? The amusement park. And so I thought that was a
Oh yeah,
really,
Crossbow.
yeah. So I thought that was fantastically done. The way they built, I mean, a whole nother chapter into this one setting, and getting to hang out with people and all the fun activities. What did you had a bunch of girls that you had interest in? Obviously, you get on to
Yeah,
little mini dates with them. Did you
yeah,
do
you got
the
the
funniest part
Imperial.
was the drinking contest though?
Oh, the
I
little side quest with Sarah and Sharon. Yeah, I did that one.
Did you get like a bunch of them? I think I had like 9 people total.
I don't remember. I know I ended up picking because there was some bonus AP associated with that.
Okay.
So whatever choices it were that resulted in the bonus AP. But yeah, I think they did like 3 rounds of three, if I
Yes.
remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I thought it was cool. You had a mix of characters you use in your party, and then you had some, I think like Adele from the
Yeah. The
garden
gardening
club was
club.
one of
Yeah.
the options you could get in there. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was a fun little side quest. Really think it just felt like a little break from the intensity of the game. This whole
Yes.
chapter was dedicated to, and I think that was really cool. It felt not only did the characters get to sit and unwind, but it kind of felt like you did too. You just sit back, enjoy some of the story. Uh, you know, almost 9 complete games by this point. You know, we're invested in these characters and getting to see
Mm-hmm.
some of their arcs come to a close. Just getting to see the way these narratives play out is a lot of fun. Particularly for me was seeing Oliver and Shara get engaged. That was
Oh
awesome.
my, that was the best moment. Like I thought it might happen, but when it finally did, I was like, "Yes, it's happening! Finally, he's settling down. The debaucherous prince has found his wife." Uh,
I thought that was great. I only wish we could have used Shara in our party a little bit.
oh man, that was probably the only one I was sad not to be able to use at some point in time.
Yeah. I mean, I never put Sharon in my party or Duvalie or any of those guys. I would have liked to have gotten to play with Shara a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, because she was tons of fun to play with there in Sky. So I think she would have been,
Yeah.
start whipping people around. Oh, it's so funny. Uh, that would have been a lot of fun. Yeah, but yeah, you said it right. Just a breather for a minute because these games are so intense. You got so much going on. Just to take a mental break and have some fun. So the big question is, of course, who did you choose? Did you stick faithful throughout the entire series with your romantic interest?
Yeah, I picked Fee in the end.
Okay.
She's the I felt like out of all the characters, she had the best background story.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, I had the most fun with her in battle. Um, so yeah, I picked her at the end. What I felt was really cool going forward. From the point that you pick. whoever it is you pick throughout the end of the game. There's changes in dialogue where whoever you pick,
Yes.
you're reacting to that.
Finally.
I mean, I know you didn't pick Fee, so you didn't see these, but there was one in the final dungeon where Green is kind of freaking out about having to tell Zeno and Leo that he's dating their sister.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was really cool. I wish you could have gotten to go farther in the game, having your romantic choice locked in, just
Yeah.
to see it play out even more than it did. I thought it was a really nice touch.
That's awesome. Yeah, there wasn't any, because of course I picked best girl Emma, and we're not going to hold Fee against you. That's okay. You can make your own your own choices. But there was a handful of little nods of scene, but I don't think there was any special scene per se like that. That's pretty cool that they gave that to you.
Yeah, like I said, I thought it was a nice touch. I was watching one of the videos from your playthroughs, particularly the ending, where you see Reen walking out of his dorm room, and there's for you it was Reen and Emma.
Yeah.
For me it was Reen and Fee.
That's cool.
So that I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and the text I guess is going to be from Fee for you. So
I will say that I think it's to the series' overall detriment, though, to have a canon romance.
Yes, in this instance, yes.
Because moving forward, I mean, are they going to just assume that it's Reen and Elisa moving forward? Are they just not going to have anybody for Reen? Does not everybody pick Elisa?
Who would pick her? I don't know.
The game was pushing you to pick her.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, they probably they need assumed lead female. I actually read in one of the interviews with, I don't know if it was Brendo or one of the other guys, but Elisa was originally going to be the protagonist of the Cold Steel.
Really? That's interesting.
Before they decided to make the protagonist a male character.
That would have been very different.
But I thought that Estelle and Joshua, their romantic arc across the games has been a great story to watch it play out, and you're just not going to get that with Reen.
No, you can't.
If they decide to do something like that with Reen and Elisa because she is the assumed female choice, then there's like you and me who picked someone else. They're going to be like, oh, well, that kind of stinks,
It is, and if I don't know if you noticed this at the very end during the normal ending, Elisa has the strongest reaction, and like Emma consoles her. It almost felt like they were, making you think that was the choice again. The game has done that. The series has done that many times where it assumes that it's Elisa, even though I don't know anybody who's actually. Maybe one person that actually picked her. I think most people actually go a different direction. And you have, especially in this one, you have many different directions. Was there anybody else that you were like, maybe?
Oh, the harem continues to grow. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could even go the princess route. Like I was almost tempted to go that way just to see how it would turn out. I think that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I like most of the female characters. So they all kind of intrigue me a little to see, okay, I wish I could see what happens here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so, Laura would have been my second option.
Mm-hmm.
I always liked Alphen. I don't have anything against Elisa. I just didn't feel she was as interesting. I don't like to use her in battle because I don't think she's particularly good. So I was never really hot for teacher. So I wasn't going to pick Sarah.
That would have been a good choice, I think. I think it would have been interesting.
I mean, I did save and reload a few times to pop some trophies. So I did get to see the romance scene play out for a lot of the characters. But once you get past there, just to see all the little tweaks that they make to the dialogue, obviously I only got to see that with Fee. She's the one that I picked, for the end game scenes. But the only female character I really don't like is Muse.
Don't break my heart like that. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know
she's a little too forward with her adult feature.
She is, and I was gonna say the only one I don't like is Elise. So, but that's a different reason for that. Yeah, can't be doing that with your sister. That's just I know they're not blood related. That's fine, but gross.
Estelle and Joshua did it. So
different.
It worked for them.
It was different though. That was not. They were much older. They were much older when Joshua showed up.
I don't know. I don't think they were that much older.
Well, but they weren't raised as okay. Reen and Elise were under the impression they were blood brother and sister. That was never the case with Joshua and Estelle. They knew that they weren't related.
That's true.
So that's how I'm justifying it. Okay, there are still both weird things. Of course, I understand that, but
you know what? I guess they've got a different take on what's okay and what's not okay over in Japan. I don't know.
That has been very well noted that the brother sister thing has been a Japan oddity for a while.
More of a guideline than a law.
No, it is very odd to say the least. You mentioned Laura, who was the one that surprised me the most. You know, you're in the cave and she goes right up there and smooches you, and she was by far other than Muse, like the only one that really did that.
Yeah, I remember that scene, and I remember thinking, wow, because all the bonding events with the girls obviously played out a little differently, a little more seriously than some others. And yeah, she was the only one who went right up there and planted one on them, at least out of the scenes that I saw. I didn't get to see every one of them. But yeah, she was, I mean, I thought it was a great scene. She, I was really touched by the narrative of the character, and what she was going through at the time.
Yeah.
Everything with her father and all that. So, yeah, she definitely went right after him.
Yeah, she's one of the kids.
She's one of the few whose trophy I did not get to watch the scene for at the end. So when I play the game through a second time, I'll definitely be looking forward to seeing those scenes.
Yeah, there was some definitely interesting options, and I thought that they handled that pretty well. And it thankfully they respected your choice this time and did show you a couple of things afterwards, because I know it would have been very difficult to do that. Like, okay, I know you picked Fee and I picked Emma in part 1, and that was my choice in every game. But it kind of felt like you were starting over every game as well, that they didn't care what your choices were.
Yeah, there were definitely some areas where it felt like you were starting from scratch, especially between Cold Steel 2 and Cold Steel 3. Because at the end of Cold Steel 2, I mean, if you pick Elisa, you guys are practically a married couple.
Yes.
So 3, it's like, hey, nice to meet you.
Who are you again?
Yeah. Oh yeah, right. Didn't I see you once before? That kind of thing. I mean, there were some dialogue changes between Cold Steel 1 and 2 that carried over if you transferred your save data.
Yeah.
I don't remember if there were between 3 and 4 or not. But yeah, and that's one of the things, like I said, where I think having the harem aspect plays to the series' overall detriment. Like, it would be one thing if it was just these 4 games and the story was done. It's not done. You're going to see these characters again. So, when we get to play Hajimari for the first time, for me, Reen and Fee probably aren't going to be a couple anymore.
Probably not.
So, I mean, again, I think a canon romance would have worked better. But it is what it is. I mean, I still enjoy playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a minor part of the overall experience. I don't think it's, in Persona, it's importance, but I think they were both kind of similar. Like, they're there, but it's not going to make that big of a difference. Just it's a personal thing. That's really that's the only thing.
I mean, I definitely agree with you, but even still, with Persona, I mean, when you get to the end of a game, that's it. It's over.
Yep.
So, you can put the game away thinking, yeah, that was who I picked at the end of the game, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
In the Trails series, it's not going to be like that.
No, not at all. The only thing I liked with Persona is if you maxed them out, you got that final form of their Persona, and it made them a lot stronger in battle, and your bonds made you stronger, different abilities, whereas it was purely kind of on the surface level for Trails. And that.
Well, not to rub salt in the wound, but you actually got to strengthen and evolve the Personas one more time if you made it to the final semester.
Oh my!
In Royal.
That wound had finally closed, and you just rip it back open. Oh, my very public love and failings of the third semester. One of these years, I'll put another 140 hours into it and finally get it, but not today.
I remember I played Persona 5 Royal for the first time after I finished Cold Steel 4. I remember hearing you talk about how you missed out on the final semester. And again, I was using a walkthrough, so I knew that you had to max out certain confidants in order to get it.
Yeah.
So I knew that going in, so I knew I wouldn't miss it. I'm just reading like the prompts and because there's a lot of tutorials and stuff in Persona 5 Royal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I know you got to max out the counselor. And they tell you like 3 times to do that.
They did. I just ignored it. It's okay.
I mean, he's not a really fun character to be spending your time with.
He's not.
So I can definitely see why you missed it. Yeah, they tell you a few times in order, hey, you got to talk to this guy before November 18th or whatever it is. And
yeah. I just assumed it was he's leaving, so you'll want to talk to him before he leaves if you care about him. Not you need to talk to him because he's leaving because you need that for the third semester.
They're going to lock you out of the final part of the game if you don't.
You had to do a little bit with Agechi too, right? Was that a part of it?
I don't think you had to max out his rank in order
to
get
max,
to the third
yeah.
But I think there were solutions to his persona that you couldn't access if you didn't proceed as far as the game would allow. I think it was only the counselor that locked out the final semester.
Yeah. That was it. That did it. Jake, I want to do something here, and we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I think we're going a little bit long on this, and I think we're having a fun discussion. So what I want to do here is we're going to wrap up this episode because we're over an hour right now, and then we'll come back with part 2 of this next week, talking about the finale and all the different other lores. I think we're going to have an entire podcast just talking about that alone. Is that cool? Is that cool with you? You come back for the next one?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So why don't you tell the people what they need to do, and we'll wrap up this.
All right. Yeah. Well, hey, until next week, get back out there and level up.